after this bill was jammed through, or a few months later since this bill was jammed through. And what we are finding now is this Inflation Act, as I would call it, really did create inflation. It was certainly put us in the situation we are right now, where we have a debt ceiling crisis. It's crushed American energy, as is evident by your testimonies today. And it has become a slush fund to benefit large corporations, not just the wealthiest corporations here, but also those in communist China. It's really interesting to hear my colleagues who accuse Republicans of corporate welfare and giving out benefits to the rich, because they have spent hundreds of billions of dollars and provided benefits to companies where 90% of those companies benefiting have sales of over $1 billion. That's who they prioritized in this bill. Meanwhile, our constituents, working class Americans, are suffering greatly. They're paying the price, both through taxes, through inflation, through high energy costs and whatnot. I want to talk about not just what this bill has done, and also what the president's anti-policies have done, but in my home state of New York, okay? And I fear that the country is going the way that New York has gone. And New York has closed a nuclear power plant, Indian Point, which provided 26% of the electricity for New York City. They are now denying permits for natural gas plants. They're banning gas vehicles, doing what California's doing. They want to mandate those EVs that people can't afford because they're over $60,000 in costs. And they also now want to move towards banning stoves. And we're talking about communities and across America where 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 42% of Americans say they have less than $1,000 in savings. And individually, they hold credit card debt record highs. I'm left wondering how these green credits benefit Americans, the American people that we represent. People in Staten Island, in Brooklyn, who can't afford a $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 electric vehicle, while these big corporations doing business are receiving a windfall of their hard-earned money, taxpayers' hard-earned money. So I'd like to start with you, Mr. Turner, because I think you're a New York City native, if I'm not mistaken, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on, are these policies, both the federal and the state that I mentioned, are these policies the reasons that my constituents are paying more for electricity and heat?
Congresswoman, thank you. Absolutely. The previous governor and carried out by the current governor of New York implemented a series of policies that dramatically increased the cost of electricity by eliminating coal, by eliminating nuclear, all what the plans, again, the future plans, one day we will build solar, one day we will, et cetera, but in the real time, the New Yorkers are suffering. Case in point, in 2019, of the height of the summer heat, Mayor de Blasio was stuck with a grid that was faltering. And what did they do? They turned off some specific areas of the city to protect the overall integrity. What areas did they turn off? Brownsville, East New York, close to where I grew up in Queens, predominantly poor, predominantly African-American neighborhoods. The Upper East Side was fine, Soho was fine, Tribeca was fine. So their policies, the very people they claim to care about are the ones they hurt the most.
Yeah, and they're also seeing high food prices as a result. High gas prices as a result. This is all a result of the Democrat policies that we're seeing on the state and federal level. In the Department of Defense space, the Specialty Metals Clause has required defense contractors and their suppliers to purchase cobalt-based alloys and steel products that have been exclusively produced here in the United States. Obviously, that's for security reasons. Dr. Horn, this is your, I think, area of expertise. Can you comment on that? And should we expand that Special Metals Clause to preclude companies manufacturing with critical minerals outside of the U.S. or its partners from attaining tax incentives or credits like this, so these jobs truly stay in the United States?
Congresswoman, thank you for raising this point. I think it's the most ridiculous idea that we would have critical defense components that we would rely on our biggest adversary for and give them the leverage that were we to get into a strategic conflict, which is certainly possible when you have spy balloons and other things going on, where they would have the ability to shut it off completely. If we don't have the ability to source ourselves with these critical national security and defense components, we are unbelievably vulnerable.
I appreciate this, and I'll just conclude because I'm out of time by saying that this administration talks about Made in America, and then they do the exact opposite thing. And sadly, what we're talking about today is just another example of that. And I'm glad that you're all calling them out on it. Thank you.
Mr. Kerry,